Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Sam for another spoiler discussion for The Last of Us. This week, we are talking Season 2, Episode 4, titled Day 1. More importantly, Sam, how was your holiday?
Holiday was amazing. You can't really tell with this light, but I did catch a little bit of sun. I don't look completely pale, which is nice. But no, it was wonderful. I could not access now whilst I was there, so I couldn't even watch the episode whilst I was there. So I watched it early today. Well, actually, no. I mean, the last episode. I'm sorry, episode 3. I couldn't watch that until Friday, and then I obviously was back in time to watch this one today. So yeah, was very happy with the holiday. Was not happy to be back, but at least there's been a lot of catching up on shows, The Last of Us, Andor. So yeah, just been speaking with George about that. And yeah, very happy to be talking about The Last of Us today.
Definitely. I almost brought out the Saw Gerrera voice again, but I might have to save that for that Andor video. Drink it in. I love Forrest Whitaker. Oh my god! Imagine Forrest Whitaker in The Last of Us. Like Saw Gerrera would actually survive.
Oh yeah,
That's like
everyone around you would die, but I mean,
like he'd have absolute no hesitation in just blowing up half the city just to make sure like they're safe. Different conversation. Let's plug Andor. Spoiler discussions are on the channel. We're live every Wednesday or Thursday, each day TVC. This week it's Thursday because this week is the 10th anniversary of the channel. And me and Tate are going to be doing a special video. It's not a typical anniversary one. We're actually going to be doing something a little bit more personal, but film related. We're going to be doing our top 50 favorite films of all time. We'll be doing 25 each. I will not be picking 11 Star Wars films of those 25. We haven't set rules as such, but I'll set some personal ones. But we're going to be doing that. That's going to go up on Wednesday, which will be 10 years to the day since the first video went up on the channel. If I was curious, that was an Avengers Age of Ultron review, and not to be mistaken by the new Avengers. Yes, that's right. Our review for Asterisk, the new Avengers, is now up on the channel. If I've just spoiled it for you, you can blame Marvel. It was previously titled Thunderbolts Asterisk. But yeah, they gave it 3 days before they told the world the title. So plugging that too, it's a very busy time. You've already mentioned Andor. I feel like there's something else. We've got a wrestling video going up on Sunday. It's an anniversary week, and it's a very busy week on top of that. So it's delighted to sort of kickstart it with The Last of Us, if I'm honest, because last week's episodes, I didn't talk personal stuff on the stream. It was the shortest review I'm probably ever going to do for The Last of Us, and I was kind of glad because I kind of said it before, but live. Last week was an episode for me in which you said it to me before we live. We're mourning the loss of Joel still. At the same time, we've got to move the story on and put them on the trajectory to get to Seattle to really kickstart the revenge tour, as the kids would call it today. Because I didn't get you on last week, just your thoughts for the people on episode 3.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised with how much time they did spend in Jackson. At the same time, I think for the show, it needed to be that long. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it wasn't, there wasn't that much in terms of progression outside of, getting to a point where Ellie was going to go. We knew she was going to go. But I think it was nice to kind of see how the town dealt with what happened last week, and that there was conflicting opinions. People like Seth having a moment to shine and support. Seeing Catherine O'Hara again, she didn't die, thank God. Yeah. Just still being an absolute standout, and just seeing the relationship now between Ellie and Dina grow in front of our eyes even more, and the fact that they did what they needed to do and left regardless of what the town's vote was, and that they were going to go on this mission to Seattle. Seeing the Seraphites for the first time was a shock. I was not expecting that at all. And yeah, it was kind of horrifying to kind of see what had happened to this band of Seraphites that we see at the beginning. So yeah, I'm interested in how the rest is going to be told. I love being surprised by some of the placements of these stories within the episodes. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I knew that this episode was probably going to be more action-packed, which it was. And yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, the Terrifiers, as you said, it was great to meet them. I can't say they were in the trailers, but I don't think they put them in the trailers. I know I haven't replayed the second game. I've actually just bought it this week on PS Store because I never used to buy digital, so I was going on a different sort of tandem. But The Last of Us 2 is one of the first ever games I bought digitally, and it's literally because I wanted to put the disc in at midnight. But because there wasn't a midnight because it was COVID, the only way I could play it at midnight UK time was to obviously buy it on PlayStation and play it. And I smashed that second game as we spoke about on the few videos, and I'm really wanting to play it again now, which is great. Not to sound like a studio shit or anything, but there is a tandem that when the show comes on, not just straight Last of Us, games like Fallout, there's a successful show running, the game player count goes up, the purchases go up, and I'm really curious to play the second game again, because to do it not just the PS5 version this time, but yeah, it's £10, why not? So I'm glad we've got them in, and I loved the introduction to them last week because they played plagued as innocents, looking for a new settlement, and we got that obviously horrific scene. Without jumping too far into today's episode, I think what this show is doing so well is not reinforcing the message that there's good people and bad people, but there are two sides to what is going on in Seattle, and I'm not saying the message of The Last of Us is basically everyone's terrible, but that's always a pretty high percentage of just the struggle to find good people that haven't lost themselves to ideologies or to war or to fascism or any of that stuff. The game's always been about humans as much as it has been the infected, surviving both fronts. And I think this season in particular is really ramping that up. And also, without trying to jump ahead too much, we get the infected again this week, where we get sequences with the infected with villain humans. And I think we spoke about it a few weeks back where I was saying that in season 1 you kind of had, here's the good guys against infected, here's the good guys against bad humans, and by the ending of episode 5, you didn't ever get them crossing over. Whereas now we're starting, certainly this season, we're starting to see it on all fronts, that we're having just people everywhere, infected everywhere. And I don't want to say scale, like bigger doesn't mean better, but I think this season's really making the infected feel like a threat, which I personally didn't feel like, not they weren't at the end of the last season, but the structure's very different to season 2, which it has to be because part 2 is such a different game. And that kind of being said, we'll talk about where we open this week's episode. We don't open it with Jeffrey Wright. We open it with Josh Peck in The Last of Us. A throwback to 2018, which is absolutely terrifying because my brain was spinning. I was like, oh no, of course, like this is set in 2028. Well, 2029 now because we had the New Year's Day episode, but we were getting a flashback, and obviously I was like, what's going to go on here? And I love the sequence, and then you hear Jeffrey Wright's voice. I'm like, okay, we're getting Isaac. We've got, for those that didn't play the game, Jeffrey Wright's now in The Last of Us. Get excited. I don't think he's underrated at this point in time. I think underrated is a word that's ironically overrated these days because everyone throws it. But I think Jeffrey Wright is one of the best character actors working today. I think that's the fairer term I'd use for him. He's great in a leading role, but he's an even better character actor. Not because he played Commissioner Gordon, but he kind of reminds me of a Gary Oldman type that you could throw him in any production and he'll find a role and make it his own. And he has a presence. And I've really enjoyed the opening sequence with him this week where, obviously we've got Josh from Drake and Josh. It's just hard not, it's weird to call him Josh Peck still. But again, having these like dickhead Fedra people, they're talking about rights, taking votes away, and they call him Sergeant at this point in time. There's like a rookie who's not in on the joke, and we have him, I don't want to say betray Fedra, but we have him killing off that team and essentially, I don't want to say switching sides, but I don't know how much more of an origin we'll get, but I guess, is it pushing the button for me to say we're going to find out about the formation of the WLF over the coming episodes?
Potentially. I think a lot of it might just be left up for interpretation. I think what this opening shows is clearly it's just the moment of the switch. Like this was a plan that was going to happen. We've spoken a bit before about perceptions and points of views in this show, and from this opening, we've heard a lot about Fedra. We've seen Fedra that ultimately they're supposed to be helping people, but in many cases they weren't. And so I think if you just took this opening alone, it'd be like, okay, Isaac is, leaving them to join the good guys or help the people. And then when we see later down in the episode that, okay, maybe that's not entirely the right mindset to have. I just think it's really interesting how they did this because I don't believe we get a scene like this in the game. But I think if you're going to utilize TV, utilize this adaptation, really try and kind of make it a bit more easier for audiences to understand. And I think Isaac's clearly an important figure in this show. And I'm glad that we're going to see a bit more of him. So to see that kind of turn and to see kind of how ruthless he is from the get-go, clearly a leader, clearly someone who commands, has authority. And Jeffrey Wright absolutely, steals the scene and has that power from the get-go. So I'm really happy they showed it. I'm glad that Alana Eubank was there. I know she's going to be in more of this, so I'm really excited to see more of her. But yeah, I don't know how much more we're going to see of it. Hopefully we'll hear a bit more, maybe see a bit more. Now I'm probably, especially after the events of the episode, seeing more of this conflict between the WLF and Seraphites. We know we'll definitely see more of that, but I'm interested in how it's going to be positioned and how much we're going to see, if we're going to get any more flashbacks or anything like that. But yeah, seeing Josh Peck was insane. I don't think it was announced at all, so it was a weird surprise to have. And yeah, I think just seeing something so simple as a betrayal like that, and him just killing all of those soldiers without a second thought. Yeah, I really appreciate the ruthlessness, I think.
Yeah, it's really good to use it. And I think even like bringing Josh Peck in, even if he's not recognised, there were people watching that who see him like, oh my God, wait, Josh Peck's in this, for him to die a minute later. I think that adds to Isaac, to Jeffrey Wright, that we've got this very different character that, you look at all the stuff we've seen in other seasons plural, but when we've had these backstories for these characters, I did wonder for a millisecond, I was like, are we going to get a Bill episode? Like, are we going to have this like 10-year build up to Jeffrey Wright? Thankfully we didn't. The one scene is all we needed, but those, the cold opens from the first two episodes of season 1 was so good when they wanted to do them. And I really, as you said, it was a great intro to Isaac, and even segueing into the next scene with him to then catch up to him 11 years later. And he knows his stuff about frying pans. I'll give him that. But this horrific torture sequence of, I mean, I can't even imagine the pain from that. Like, intuitive. I'll give it that, because it's just not. Oh, here's my ranking of torture sequences, but that's a pretty rough torture. And in comparison to that, I don't remember the actor's name that played the Seraphite on the floor being tortured, but everything out on show. The worst kind of torture is, I don't want to make a Holocaust comparison, but when you like see those World War II like, films, visual. Like, that's the better one. Like, they're not hiding from how brutal this sequence is going to be. It's a very weird thing to compare Last of Us. It's not the intention, but it was always, if you see the nudity, because that's what did happen in real life, that would add more to those sequences, and just the torturing. Then the guy even putting his hand out for more, like, I'm not going to give you the information, and just killing him after. I think what it does a great job of showing is that, again, for those watching who haven't played the game, I can't get too carried away in what's to come. Obvious spoilers. It's really hard doing it still. I think it would show that Isaac's not a good guy. Like, even though you just got this great opening with him, and you think, oh, was this going to be someone they find? Could this be an important person? But this is okay, he's the head of a group, and they're the type of people that were killed last week, and now he's killing another one, saying, when's the attack coming? I liked what it's setting up from what would you call it? Like, not a Seattle standpoint, but it adds. This is really strange. You know how in Star Wars, because we were talking about Star Wars 4, certain planets have like character. Not they're not alive. It's not Unicron from Transformers, but it will feel like a real place. It will feel like a real location because how it's been shot, how it's been staged, the production, the writing, the extras, the people that are brought in to these environments make it feel like a lived-in world. That's the term I should have used.
Yeah.
And I think Seattle has had it where, guess what? We'll get to Ellie and Dina, but they're in Seattle now. But this is what's going on in Seattle. You know, we ended last week with all the troops walking through, but this week is, hey, those poor people that were killed last week, this is what they do to them. And it really starts delving into okay, are they all terrible people? Are there any good people? And it kind of reinforced that belief that maybe there is no characters in this that can be trusted that are innocent. And I know I'm jumping ahead. I didn't mean to bring the bodies, but we won't get to that a bit fully. But I like where they're going to introduce the Seraphites, where they're going to introduce the WLF, because it is there to create conflict, and it is a very important story beat in that second game. I don't think the show will have the luxury of doing as much as with that backstory, because obviously a lot of that is Abby's POV. We're in a 7-episode series. You know, we're not going to have the time to fill that, but I like what they've been able to do with like literally 3 scenes already.
Yeah. I think the important thing in showing these factions, these people, is to highlight the complexities of a situation, and that, you know, this whole series and this whole world that we're in is all about, to me, is this big, massive middle grey area where there is literally no one who hasn't done something wrong. It's so rare for a person to be in that position, and I think by having something like the WLF versus the Scars, it's a bigger battle that is basically mirroring Ellie versus Abby, and that by one action creates a reaction, which creates a reaction. It all blows up and turns into a massive battle. I really liked Isaac saying about, you know, the chicken and the egg. You know, their argument about, well, you did this, well, you killed these kids, and you did that, and it's all like, okay, at this point, what does it matter? You've both sides have done terrible things, and it's just going to continue until everyone's dead, or it needs to stop. And that's, you know, something that's going to be really important with Abby and Ellie, about by Abby seeking revenge, Ellie and Dina have now come to Seattle, and by the potential actions that are going to happen because of them coming to the city, and that could cause even more issues and danger. So it's great to play that, but it's really by having these opportunities to actually have scenes without Ellie or Abby and seeing these moments. I think that's where the strength of the TV show lies in many ways, because it's bigger than them. Of course, Ellie is the main character now that we're following, but there's still a world that we need to kind of get to grips with. And by seeing these factions and how they work, that's really going to help strengthen the story as we develop this time in Seattle, because there is going to be a lot more time now. I'm going to presume almost exclusively it's going to be in Seattle for the rest of this season, at least. So I love these scenes. I love the contrast. You know, and I'm very much predicts that we will see the Scars be doing some horrible things themselves. But the torture scene, yeah, it was graphic, did make me feel uncomfortable. But I thought it showcased the Seraphites in an interesting way. They go with their faith, they're not necessarily afraid of being hurt or death. Because they hold on to their faith so much, it strengthens them. So yeah, it was really weird to watch, but equally interesting. And I'm really looking forward to kind of how this develops.
Yeah, same here. And I think it, as you said, it probably will be exclusively just in Seattle moving forward. That the day one in the title, you spoke about it on streams. The core events of that second game is across 4 days. Episodes 4, 5, 6, and 7. There's 4 episodes. I don't think it's a coincidence there, if I'm completely honest. Which really opens the door for. I'm so curious about where they're going to choose to end the season, and then also in turn of that, what does that mean for next season? Because where I've got to give credit to Neil Druckmann, obviously being involved in the game, working on the co-show running the series. Then you've got Craig Mazin, who has proven with Chernobyl, he's one of the best showrunners there is. To have the back and forth of the pair of them, where I watched the HBO YouTube thing. I'm not saying I should listen to the podcast because it was really good on season 1, but even if there's disagreements, we're never going to hear about it on a video format entirely. But I think they've got the best of both worlds, where you've got someone that knows the game, someone that knows the story, sat right next to the person that knows exactly how to make a TV show. And there is a working dynamic between them that is so clear and concise. It doesn't feel like anyone's getting bogged down with one side or the other. It feels there's a really good working opportunity there. And I think that second game is so rich in storytelling that not just because it's longer, but because there is so many little things to pick at, which they're doing with the factions, as you've mentioned. A big part of that second game is obviously Seattle, and I guess where we'll go. We get a lot of time with Dina and Ellie. Last week we obviously had that. We had them on their journey, and the chemistry started to get there between them. But this is the episode where they just went from 2 girls that had a kiss at New Year's Eve to this is Dina and Ellie, outright the couple now. And I'm just going to immediately praise both acting performances, particularly Isabella Mercer, not just because she's been incredible in so many things she's been in, but to come into the second season when, I think I said to you a few years back, it's not an arrogant thing. I sort of said, Dina's going to be the co-lead of the show now. And it feels like they're doing that at present. I did notice on the credits today that the actor for Tommy is now second in the credits.
Yes.
So Bella Ramsey's first, because Bella Ramsey would come on with with Pedro together. They'd fade in, fade out. But it is now Bella Ramsey. Oh my God, I forgot Tommy's actor's name. Gabrielle Luna. And then it's Isabella on her own page. She's not with 4 or 5 others. She's by herself. And obviously we know Tommy, at this point in time in the show, you expect him to be back home. If we talk game changes, I don't want to say too much in case someone's watching that hasn't played the game. There's a chance he's already in Seattle. I can't say any more than that, but I personally think they are doing something very different with Tommy, which I think is working very well because it means we're getting more time with Dina, with Ellie. And this episode of the pair of them together, we had the pregnancy tests. I'm really sad at this. I just love seeing them exploring things because for those that have played the game, I'm a hoarder. I go into every shop. I check every single drawer. I check every single cupboard. I like reading the notes to find the stories of the other people. I like my ammo. Little moments of just people going around these buildings, these towns with one another. I really enjoy it. But I guess a really big moment we had today. Well, there's 2 actually. The pride flags I want to talk about.
Yes.
Now I can't remember if they're in the game or not. And I thought it was very. I don't want to say sweet. I love the idea that we have a lesbian couple on screen who weren't born, so they don't know what pride is. And there's something really not daunting about it, but obviously it's fictional. It's a fictional history. It happened in 2003. I like the idea that things we know in a society that hasn't had, a wipeout, that has grown across decades, doesn't exist in their world. And I just thought there was something so innocent about the pair of them. Obviously, we know what they're going to be as a couple. Seeing all the stuff they must have been really happy or cheerful, very colourful. And I kind of wondered your thoughts on that sequence as well.
I found it really interesting. I was I can't remember if there was anything like it in the game, but I think to just have these two women, you know, together, really finding their feet in a relationship. It's also new. Um, you know, Ellie, I think is definitely, a lesbian, and Dina seems like she could be more bisexual. And to just have, you know, uh, characters who are from this community to then be going down in an area in Seattle, which clearly was very, LGBTQ plus friendly, having the pride flags and all that. I think it's a really strong statement to have anyway, to just people who are watching the show who are unsure about what's going on. People thinking, oh, they're just going to be gal pals. Like, no. Um, but also just showcasing that, you know, as great as it is to have pride and the pride flag, it really is about the people and coming together. And, obviously in our world, pride is still incredibly important. And, I'm very proud of the community in many ways, and having something like Pride, which, is all year round, but having these specific moments and having the flag. But seeing how a quarter of a century after this happens, there's not many things from the old world that continue. So it's kind of sad that that doesn't. But I think it's a nice touch to have them go by those flags to comment on it. Yeah, I did think it was sweet, but also it's sad that they don't recognize that, because any other person of their age would. So yeah, I think it's interesting to do, because I think we've touched upon. I think religion has been touched upon, but in this show, but I think it just highlights that over certain years, a lot of information is lost, and a lot of people don't continue certain things. Um, but yeah, I still think it's a lovely thing that they did.
Definitely. And then how do you follow that bit? Well, we of course get one of the scenes. It's in the YouTube video for anyone that likes the behind the scenes ones. We get Ellie on the guitar with Dina watching. I loved this moment. So Bella Ramsey can play the guitar. That's been confirmed. I always wonder with things, are they going to get like a hand double for the close-ups? Like, only because my old job was casting, so for that sort of thing, you'd see actors replaced, which is understandable because not everyone can do anything. But Bella Ramsey can play the guitar. That has been confirmed, and they basically said to them that, can you learn this song for this sequence for the show? Now, I didn't realize this. Apparently, it can be missed in the game. I didn't realize it's like an optional moment. I remember the guitar bit when you at a different location in the game, you can play guitar in spare time, because I've seen videos of people playing real music on it. But with this one in particular, this moment, I don't know if they're singing themselves or it's a dub. I don't care. It was such a sweet scene, and Isabella's sort of crying at the end of it. It was very emotional. And for those that haven't even abridged, let alone the emotion side, when you realise that in season 1 she says to Joel, "I'd like to play the guitar," and we're here 5 years later, and Ellie can play it very well. I loved that sequence. It reminds me of the giraffe scene, where it's just you're lost in the innocence of the youth of a child. I know she's 19 now, but a child who didn't get to live in normal times. And this time round, it's Isabella seeing the person she's fallen for, and it's that moment at which I think she has the clarity, like, this can be, I guess we'll say, the father to the baby, which is a great scene we'll talk about later. But yeah, that scene, I mean, what did you think? I almost cried.
I think it's things like that where I think it's really important for the show to highlight moments of beauty. And you see that we've seen before of kind of nature, being overgrown, taking over cities and technology. And to see this kind of music store, to see the records, of things that we know. And then Ellie obviously has learned the guitar from Joel to find these guitars, to see that there's one in a case which is like almost perfectly preserved. I think and her excitement of that, and that she wants to play it, and to get Dina's reaction to that, to kind of Ellie playing, being vulnerable, opening up, not being so focused on her mission. I just want to take a moment to play a song and sing. And I love that moment in the game. I really do, and so I'm glad that was pulled through here. And I think it is one of those moments where I think it helps make the relationship more believable, because you need to fall in love with all facets of a person, well, most facets of a person anyway. So outside of kind of just chemistry, it's what do you enjoy about that person? What does this person bring? And I think someone playing an instrument is a really lovely thing to do. It showcases talent. It showcases a sense of confidence to perform. So even though Ellie's doing this privately originally, I think it's just so lovely to have this kind of moment where it's individual for both of them, but it brings them closer together. And yeah, I just think it was so sweet, so sweet. And I guess if I didn't have a heart of stone at the moment, I would have cried. But yeah, I think it's absolutely lovely, and I'm really glad they kept it.
Definitely, and it's such a great episode for their relationship as well. That we're seeing them together, developing feelings for one another. We'll get into the important secrets, I guess we could say, later too. But to balance their relationship alongside introducing Isaac to have these terrible things, the juxtaposition of those is quite something. And again, in a really difficult structure of, again, this 20-30 hour game, condensing it down into, I don't even know, the second season is going to be 7 episodes, 10 episodes. Obviously, they're not said, which is, sorry, the third season, I meant, we don't know how long it's going to be. But to condense that down is a very tricky challenge, and they're absolutely nailing it so far. And where we get these two is we get to the TV station, which is just one of those, again, another incredible set that they've made. And not everything's got to be exactly like it was in the game, but there are just some things that are so satisfying, like what I mentioned, the guitar scene. The TV station, having the bodies, the disgusting, them hung, the guts spilling out, working out it was quite fresh is a disgusting way of talking about spilling out guts. But not them wondering for the sake of wondering. It's, oh shit, things are about to get real. The bodies are basically fresh. They're on their way. And at that point, you realize, okay, the story is going to get moving now. That you mentioned before about live that we can't. There was so much gameplay in that first day in Seattle, especially for Ellie and Dina with one another, to get that down into this 45-50 minute first episode. I loved the station stuff. I know it was very quick and it was more of a segue sequence, but it serves the purpose of really bigging up the Seraphites versus the WLF. That there's terrible people on both sides of the discussion. It's not one regime versus another. It's two contrasting factions trying to get the other one done. And I don't have much to say on the series. I don't know if you've got anything on the TV station, but it's great at propelling us into what is obviously the infected sequence after, which is the key for where the episode goes.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those sequences where it is just leading to the next thing. It's their first kind of lead in the city about where the WLF are based. Clearly, it allows them to understand that there's something happening here. The fact that it is in such a grotesque way, that visual in the game was something, and I'm glad it's something that they brought over here. In the game, it's a longer, tense scene, and I'm again glad that we got some tension in there as well. But the whole thing is to get the WLF first noticing Ellie and Dina. We've just had this kind of really nice introduction to Seattle, all these kind of like lovely things, but now darkness has come, and it's going to get a bit heavier now. So yeah, I don't have too much to say about it either, but I do think it was a really good scene, and it just leads to that underground subway system scene.
I mean, the infected sequence was amazing. I don't know. I'm not saying a lot's changed in season, but maybe it's a bigger budget. Maybe they've got the designs locked in. It's a bit different, but the infected feel so much more terrifying. in this. Like, not because there's more of them, but maybe the set designs are a bit different. Maybe because they're making changes to that second game. It's not the familiarity, but I loved everything about what they did with this. Having them running across each train carriage, trying to squeeze out. They're getting in, they're not. The others are going to get killed, the other soldiers. I loved all of it. It's a solid action set piece. It feels different to other ones we've had, and I think that's the key for a zombie type show. I don't watch The Walking Dead. I've seen a lot of clips from it, the obvious clip that everyone's all seen too. Loads of my friends, for context, watched it when it aired, so I knew everything about The Walking Dead without ever having watched it. Then, like what seems to be 3/4 of the planet, then everyone stopped after a certain season. This show has had the infected in different environments with, I don't want to say more creativity with those environments, but I don't feel like I've seen the same scene twice. Having a hall of them running across the ice, having a group of them trying to rip the fence off the floor. This time we've got the train carriage where it's like it gets to the next block. It feels a bit more inventive, and I kind of wonder if you've got any thoughts on the infected before we get to the bite.
I don't have too much. I do think the way that they're being used is I can't say it's smarter, but I think a lot of the first season, and part of it is down to source material as well, but I think because of the way that the cordyceps are used, and it's not like it's just going to bring one or two. It is going to bring a massive horde. I think it's quite rare, unless you're kind of in an isolated setting where there's only going to be a handful. And I think what it showcases that if there is a large number of them and you're in an open setting, you are screwed unless you're smart, unless you can find a place to go, or work out an exit. It's going to be really difficult for you to stop that. The WLF were overrun immediately. They had no chance, whereas Dina and Ellie, were managed to utilize the train carriages and get out that way. But yeah, they are terrifying. I think a lot of it is the settings that we're in, and I think to have kind of this, these set pieces that we've had this season of the snow, having the amount of them there to actually enter quite a personal area of Jackson, to then be in this low lit setting, this low lit cold setting, with only the flare lights there. It just creates a vibe and a mood, which is terrifying. You see them go through, and then you see the clicker, and then it's like, oh, it's really intense. So I'm glad once again that this scene was brought through, and to actually see them get out of it. Obviously, it leads to the bites. We knew that there would be something that would, because Dina doesn't know that Ellie's immune. I think in the game it was a cracked gas mask. I think was that the original thing, and then it was a bite. I can't remember if it was both. But I think because I feel like
I feel like spores, or am I getting mixed up the first? There was definitely a bite because that's when they go to the theatre, don't they? Where they basically have the trade off. And
I do think that the gas mask, they were wearing masks as well, and spores. It was that as well. So I don't know if it was like a double whammy in the game, but I think in terms of pace and stuff, I think to have gone through a place with masks on and stuff would have kind of brought down the pace in.
Yeah, and I think it worked so well that where they went the location, as you mentioned, if you're in an open location, you're going to get overrun if you're not smart. Just the rusty gate, trying to pull them through, and the way in which they shot, they're throwing the arm and focusing on Dina again, the bite, the reaction, even the immediate aftermath where she slows down way before she gets the gun out. She's just on a different level, and the performance in the next few scenes by Isabel is incredible in the series. And there's been so many wonderful performances across multiple seasons. Some of actors who are in it for one scene, like Jonathan from The Mummy, the opening to the entire show. Others, you've got your lead characters, you're getting supporting characters, they're getting their moments, and what would happen in the next sort of 10 minutes, I think really sells this, that there is the reality kicking in of both actors. Ellie being scared for her life because that is a gun at her face. It isn't I'm cockily going to say I'm infected. There was genuine belief, and we know it's not going to happen because it's episode 4 of season 2, not to be slammy, but it felt like she could actually kill her in this scene. And even the going to sleep, the believable bit, just the camera kept going back to Isabella. I almost made it the thumbnail for tonight, but I wanted Jeffrey Wright in it, so I did. But the crying with the gun pointing, the flashlight, even when she wakes up, and we don't actually get to see her face for about a minute or two first. I loved how they directed the episodes, and then the revelation that I'm pregnant, no big build up, no anything of that, just the I'm pregnant moment. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if some people will dislike it because it's a little bit different, but it goes back to that. How do you write this for TV versus how do you write this for a game? I think Ellie's reaction, some people aren't going to be happy the fact that she's okay with it. She's happy. I almost just did a spoiler for Abby. Sorry. Juxtaposition is the word. If you know, you know. I personally prefer that Ellie has a natural reaction of being excited about her partner being pregnant. In a world as destroyed as this one, for someone that had no mother, that's very vocally brought up in that first season, the fact she had no family until she had the absent father, which was Joel. For her to then find out that she's going to be a father, in her words, which I thought was just one of the funniest stories of the year. Like, I'm going to be a father. Loved it. We know he's wearing the trousers. Great. But I just love that little sequence. I'm sorry, I don't have much more to add in it. I just really enjoyed it. I personally don't. Ellie being angry works for the game. I don't think that would have worked for the series and what Ellie's character has been in the series so far. It's a really hard thing to talk about without like getting ahead to future.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to talk about that, but I do think, in the least, the whole build up to this sequence of events is based on kind of adrenaline, a rush. There's been so much intensity, so much, worry, and I will say, and I'll echo, what you said there. Like, Isabella, I think, did excellently, really showcasing a sense of fear, sadness, everything. Basically just starting something with someone and then realizing, oh, they're gonna die, and she needs to be the one to kill Ellie. It's really harrowing, and Bella obviously continuously does an amazing job, and really trying to find that balance of explaining, I can't get infected, I won't get infected, watch me, I'm not going to turn. I love that entire thing, and then that realization of once Dina knows for sure that what Ellie's telling is the truth, that she almost immediately has to say, I'm pregnant. It's like, yes, she's only just found out that she's pregnant, but it is that sense of trust that you've just told me something massive. I'm going to tell you something. I love that whole thing. And with Ellie, yeah, I think, again, you're right. I think in this version of Ellie, would be excited, and I think part of it is naivety. They are both very young. I think they obviously have a lot to learn, but there's something so innocent and nice about the idea, the prospect of new life, and something so innocent that and new that has nothing to do with this really ugly world that they're in. So I think that's a wonderful thing, and I think part of that is because there's not been such a animosity with the whole Jesse situation, because that's kind of been smoothed over. There's no real need for Ellie to be really upset about it unless they wanted to add further drama, which I don't think was necessary in this adaptation, at least anyway. So yeah, I thought the whole thing was really, really lovely, and it makes sense that they would go and have sex afterwards, I think. The fact that they've got such heightened emotions between the pair of them. They've both spent the past, have many days, weeks traveling to Seattle to then have the day that they've had, all this intensity to then conclude in, basically telling some truths that no one else knows. And of course that explodes in emotion, and yes, we're gonna have sex. And I remember saying, I think was it the first or second episode, about them cutting the scene of, because Ellie was with Jesse and Dina was with Joel, that they didn't have that scene there. And for the game spoiler, it's because they have sex for the first time before Joel's death. So I think it makes sense again in this version narratively to have that there. And yeah, I think that whole thing, especially in this theater, which is, at least for now, their base of operations. I think it was the right call.
No, I agree with you as well. I think it's hit that natural part. It's not been done too early in the season. It's been a few episodes, and I think this is the episode where they felt not like it would happen. Yeah, as you said, naturally, they've travelled, they've built up to it. There's been tension. They've shared their most personal secret to one another, and that is where it does go after that. For those, as you said earlier, the fact they're naive as well because they're so young. It's still a struggle to talk about because of the episodes to come. There's revelations, of course, as you'd expect. Sorry, I've got the hiccups. I've been drinking too much. There's going to be revelations. There's going to be changes. There's going to be other character juxtapositions. Where this episode does end, though, is we get the voice of Nora on the walkie-talkie, and we know that they are at the hospital. The bit of tension I do enjoy is Ellie basically being like, "No, you're not coming with me." But Dean says, simple as that. Lovely little bit of them holding hands. Very cute. But I can't wait for next week. And it's kind of where this week ends. Considering it was a 50-minute runtime, it felt like a lot happened. And nothing was too short. Every sequence was about right. I never felt there was too long in any scene. I never felt there was missing any moment. It was so well written. And I've got to give credit to Kate Herron, who directed it. People will know her most. She directed all of season 1 of Loki. I think she did one episode of Shooty Gap was Doctor Who from last year. I wouldn't know which one. But she's a very talented director, and she absolutely just knew what to do with this. And it's great that you do get TV directors that can do Disney, that can do HBO, that can do other, Doctor Who as well. She's a very talented director. I think she's going to be doing a Sims film. That I feel like that was said a year or two ago.
Yes, writer and director for The Sims.
I don't know how you do a Sims film. Just take. They've done a Minecraft film. Is everyone going to rock up dressed as the Grim Reapers to Sims screenings? Who knows? Please don't. But I thought this was one of the best direct episodes of the season. It's been a very good season so far as well. Like, I can't really complain. It's been, given the. Do I want to get into the conversation again? Given how certain online echo chambers are very vocal with that second game, and there are very valid concerns on the second game as such, but just it was wild. It's all been very quiet with season 2. I saw an article saying season 2 viewership's gone down. It hasn't. The views went up in episode 3 after episode 2, so the Pedro Pascal not being a false narrative hasn't worked out. Different conversation, I guess, in the season when everything's a little bit more transparent. But sort of segue into my final thoughts. I very much enjoyed this episode today. I am excited for what's to come, and I think they really built off episode 3. I know it was a short episode review. I didn't care it was me by myself, but when you nail the before and after of an episode like episode 3, I don't want to sit there and say it enhances it, but if you were to rewatch it on a binge format, episode 3 is so important. It reminds me, sorry to get in Star Wars, episode 11 of Andor season 1. I won't do spoilers in case people watch. Obviously, I'm going to recommend it. You've just had the incredible One Way Out arc for 3 episodes, and you're before the season finale. And I remember at the time I was a bit mixed on that episode because it was like, nothing really happened. It was a bridge. It wasn't filler. It was a very important bridge. And I think episode 3 has had that. I'd be so curious to go back into the season. I won't be able to rewatch the season because there's too many things coming out. But yeah, for me, summed up a solid 4th episode, and I can't wait for the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think the main thing for me is that they kind of hit all the beats that they needed to from day one of the game, and the important things were kept. Some new, fresh perspectives were added to it, and I think the main thing really is just strengthening this relationship between Dina and Ellie. And they absolutely did that. And for me, that's the most important thing of this part anyway, because that's really going to help the rest of the episodes by having that stable, strong relationship between those two. It's going to make everything that comes afterwards just be way more intense and way more exciting. So yeah, very happy with this episode. Really happy with the season overall so far. We've got another half of the season to go, so we will see.
That's why I'm smiling. I've just realised the season finale is on a bank holiday. I might watch it live at 2 a.m.
It's my birthday. Is when my 30th birthday is the last.
Oh,
episode.
it is.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my calendar. You made the calendar. I should have told you that before.
George, thank you.
Yeah,
so
it
much.
is. I switched it to maybe. I was like, it's someone's birthday this month. Oh my god, it is your birthday. Okay, that's a different conversation. We'll have that another time. Get on YouTube on your birthday. I'm joking. I'm not that guy. But I just hadn't clocked until now. It's because it's Bank Holiday Day, and I was just sat there like 3 episodes. I was like, is it going to be Bank Holiday? Can I watch it live? Like, I don't have the energy these days to do 2 a.m.s. I have to take time off work. Everyone watch Andor, which I'm not doing by the finale. But yeah, as you said, season 2's been solid, and I guess where we'll go with this, we're going to round out today. So everybody watching at home, if you're not watching live, please do comment your thoughts on The Last of Us, your thoughts on episode 4, your thoughts on the second series so far, what you're excited for, what you're not. We'll be live next Monday again with episode 5, assuming it will be called Day 2. Please just let them name them all correctly now. If they don't, that's fair enough. But I'm excited to know what other people are thinking, so do get involved. We mentioned it's the channel anniversary. There's a lot of things happening. Get us on social medias to find out videos we're working on, when we'll be live, when we won't be live. If we're uploading, as I said, channel anniversary video on Wednesday, Andor on Thursday, WWE Backlash spoiler discussion is going to be on Sunday. So we've got a few things in the pipeline for this week. We've, of course, got the shorts going again. March was a very quiet month for many reasons. And I'm glad we've sort of had a few weeks being back in it. It's been fun talking Last of Us. It's been fun talking Andor. We were even late recording tonight because we were just having a lovely little catch up. So that is going to do it for me. Sam, once again, thank you so much for joining. To everybody at home, we'll see you on the next one. Take care.